All right, guys, welcome into the AfterSchrock. I missed you all last week, and the week before I wasn't able to do an AfterSchrock because of scheduling conflict. So I haven't actually done an AfterSchrock in quite a while. So we're going to give everybody a few minutes to get connected here. When you get connected, let me know if you can hear me okay. Make sure that the audio levels are good. I just want to make sure that everyone can hear good so I don't get halfway through doing the AfterSchrock and find out no one can hear me. That would be unfortunate. All right, so while people are getting connected, I'm going to send this email for Wes's winning certificate here real fast. Sunday winner is Wes, and his phone number is this. So there we go. Now Wes will receive his gift certificate. All right, so angry faces. Who gave me an angry face? Why are you angry? I don't understand. Okay, so funny stories from camp. Let's see. So you're going to go out to Boy Scout camp, and you're going to camp for a week with a bunch of 10 to 13-year-old boys. You're going to get some stories that come up. Gosh, there were so many. I'm trying to think of the funniest ones to share with you. The one that just pops into my mind is, okay, so we do this camp, and San Isabel Scout Ranch. We'd never been there before. It's basically about 9,000 feet up. It's just outside of Pueblo in Colorado, and it's all right. So we get there, and the water doesn't work right. They have water burst pipes or whatever. They were saying there was a new law in Colorado that requires them to keep med forms on file for 7 years, and they have to have inspectors come because it's classified as a daycare facility. We only found out later that law is not a new law. In fact, chances are, from what we could tell, that the San Isabel Scout Ranch actually made a mistake in their paperwork or missed a filing deadline or didn't pass an inspection, so they had to re-register as a daycare center because that was the only way they could have a resident camp. So it sounds like there was a lot going on there. So it was a kind of a rough week in a lot of ways. The water was spotty, whether you had it or not, which means showers were spotty, and the adults all wanted that pretty bad. The boys not so much. It was kind of stinky. The food was mediocre to average, so in some ways it was kind of a rough week. And so we're at the end of the week here, and we're filling out the adult evaluations of the camp, and we're saying, okay, we could just lay it on. We could just trash these guys because so much went wrong. I mean, they had an autistic 12-year-old teaching a class to other scouts, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that on the surface, but he didn't know the material. And I'm like, yeah, and I understand you're having staffing trouble, but my goodness, I mean, that's not a good thing to do for him as a boy. That's not a good thing to do for the other boys that are here to learn, that paid money to be here to learn. I mean, come on, run your camp. So, we could have just blasted him on the form, but we're like, we have one person in our group. His name is Tim, one of the adult leaders, and he is the most fair-minded, reasonable people that in the group. So we're like, we're going to let him be our voice, right? So right before we're filling out the evaluations, the showers are on because they need to be cleaned, right? So they have a water leak, so they turn off the water because they don't know where the leak is yet. They're trying to find it, and their water comes from storage tanks. So if they just let it leak, they're going to run out of water. There's not like you're on a mountain. There's no groundwater or anything like that. And we're not drinking out of the mountain runoff or anything. It's like they have water trucks come in, they fill up the tanks, and then the tanks drain down. So they don't want to run the water out of the tank if they can help it. So they turn off the water to the showers and consequently half of the camp, because it's all one line and there's no intermittent shutoffs or valves in the middle of anything. It's all just one big underground hose. So anyway, so they turned on the showers so we could clean them because it was our day to clean the showers on the last day of the camp. So we're like, if we're going to clean the showers, we're going to get all the boys. It's the last day of camp. Get all the boys in there, get them all showered and cleaned so they can all get in the van and not stink everybody out the next day. So we get all of our boys in there, and they're trying to take showers. And so there's 16 showers. They all worked. We thought the shower heads were calcified because some of them were just dripping. They weren't working well. And Tim, our reasonable leader, he comes out of the showers and he's angry. And we're like, what's going on, Tim? And he goes, I just had to take a shower under a utility spigot on my knees. And we're like, whoa, what happened? He holds out his hand, and there's a penny with a hole drilled in the middle of it. And he goes, found this in the shower head after I was done. Because he was so angry when he was done taking his shower on his knees under the utility spigot that's in the shower. because there's like a spigot down here and then there's the shower head, right? So he's down here under the spigot trying to get clean because the shower head won't put out any water. So he unscrews it and finds that they put pennies in the shower head and they drilled a hole through the penny to restrict the water flow. And that is what had calcified. And so the shower head was fine. It was the penny with the water restriction in it that was, oh, he was mad. So right before we fill out the evaluations, our reasonable-minded Tim has to take a shower on his knees because they put a drilled penny in the shower head. And of course, he told the management about it, and they're like, "Oh, there must have been somebody before us. We didn't do that." You know, he was not very reasonable. He was very unhappy at that moment. So we're filling out the camp evaluations, and we're like, let's focus on being constructive, right? Let's make sure that, you know, we're not just bashing, that we're saying you could do better if you did this. Let's give them some recommendations on how they could improve the camp, because they got like 4 or 5 weeks of camps left that are coming. We could try to make it better for the next person. Okay, so we're going through and we're doing all this, and we're writing out page 2, you know, and we're writing everything down, and we look over to the right, and there's a scout shirt laying on we're at the dining hall, right? This is the dining hall. So we're sitting on the deck of the dining hall, which is a half a mile from our camp. And we look over, and there's a scout shirt sitting there, and it has our 402, our troop number on it. And we're like, well, that's got to be this one particular scout shirt there. And then underneath the bench, there's a pair of like navy blue tighty whities laying on the ground. And we're like, what do you think the odds are that that's somebody's, one of our guys' underpants, right? So, oh, ha, 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 whatever. We keep filling out our application. And one of our scouts comes walking by, and I'm just, we've been a week with these guys, so we're just ribbing them, and, you know, it was all good fun. I turn around and look at him, and I'm like, hey, is there a particular reason your underpants are on the floor up here under the dining hall table? This isn't your house. Your mom's not going to come pick up your underpants. So he comes up the stairs, and sure enough, of all the odds, it was his shirt and his underpants. Like, how is that possible? There's 260 kids in this camp, and the one that happens to be walking by is the one who left his underpants. Now, I don't know. So what happened was he went and took a shower, and he took his clothes and rolled them up in his scout shirt. But he wanted to leave his scout shirt near the flagpole so he wouldn't have to carry it around with him. And when the flags were going to be retired, you got to put your Class A's on. So, you know, his shirt would be there and ready. But apparently, when he tossed his shirt up on the dining hall deck, his underpants were rolled up in the shirt, and he didn't realize that. So I didn't ask him if he was wearing underpants. Maybe he took another pair down to the shower with him to change his underpants. I don't know. But he walks up to the table, and I'm like, hey, why are your underpants up here on the ground? And he says, oh, shoot. And we just all busted up laughing. We're like, what are the odds? Oh, my gosh. So, no, it was pretty fun. You know, we go hiking around, and it got to be kind of a challenge, like how many steps can I get? And then how many steps became how many miles. And then I think the record that I set there was I did 13.7 miles on foot in a day, and obviously wasn't running. Because the air is pretty thin up there. I was walking a lot. You know, we slept in canvas tents on platforms. The canvas tents had been waterproofed, and this is great. So our scoutmaster says, I called down to the camp, and they said, hey, it's great news. All the tents have been re-waterproofed. And so he says, you know, what that tells me is that the tents were leaking bad enough that they had to re-waterproof them. So I would recommend bringing a tarp, just because if they were leaking that bad, chances are they missed a few leaks. So, you know, the leaders brought tarps with us. And the first day I laid down, I put all my stuff and set up my little tent, and I laid down and looked up at the ceiling, and it was daylight out, and I could just see pinpricks of daylight coming right through the canvas. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not waiting for rain. I'm going to put my tarp up right now. So I put my tarp up, and then, you know, everything's going great. And then there's a hailstorm, right? This massive hailstorm comes out of nowhere. Like, I'm never going to complain about how fast the weather changes in Nebraska ever again, because literally it was sunny and 70 degrees, and I'm not joking, 4 minutes later it was 40 degrees and hailing. Like, what? And not just a little bit of hail, like enough hail you could scoop it up and make hail snowballs with it. And not that and throw them at other troops. Not that any Troop 402 leaders would do such a thing, because we're always setting shining examples for our boys. But you could do that, if you were so inclined. There was that much hail on the ground. And so I was taking a video. I have like 5 videos of the hail because I'm taking a video. Hey, look, it's hailing. And then first, I zoomed in real close on the ground. I'm like, look, there's 2 little hailstones. Yay. And okay, the video's done, whatever. And then it starts hailing harder. And I'm like, well, I kind of post a lot to the Troop Facebook page. So I'm like, well, I can't post that hail video because now there's a better hail video. So I take out my phone again. I'm like, oh wow, look, it's really hailing now, and you can hear it pinging off the car over there, and you can hear it pinging off the shelter we're under. Like, oh, look at that, there's a little bit of white on the ground. Like, look at this hail in the middle of June. That's pretty crazy, right? Stop the video. All of a sudden it's just like boom, hail. I mean, we're like worried about the cars now. We're like, is the shelter going to stay up? Like, it was hailing. And so I take out my phone and I look over my shoulder at the Scoutmaster and I say, man, every time I take a video of this hail, it just hails worse. So I take out my phone and my son behind me, being the wonderful smart aleck that he is, says, well then Dad, stop taking video. So what do? I take another video and I'm like, now look at the hail. And now it's just like snow cover on the ground. Like, look at this hail. This is crazy in June. But yeah, that's the video. It didn't get worse after that, so that was good. And then my son later, he said, hey, can I see that video of the hail? So he's looking at it, he goes, I swear, if I'm watching this video and it starts hailing again. So everybody thought it was pretty funny that he was giving his dad a hard time. All right. So let me see, if you have any questions, now is the time to post them to the feed over here. I try to answer them for you while we're doing the program here. And I got a couple stories that we didn't get to that we're going to try to jump into there as well. Picture and video is good. That's awesome. I can't wait for the new KFAB studio, guys. They're going to, I talked about this a couple weeks ago, this entire studio, these weirdly gray walls here, and the carpet that used to be brighter than it is now, all of it is getting torn out, and they're going to completely redo the studio. And Schrock Innovations is providing all the tech. So we're going to be putting in streaming computers. We're going to be putting TVs on the wall with they can put custom graphics for their shows. They can do Skype conversations so they can actually have a camera on the TV and a camera on the host. So they can do better interviews. There's all kinds of possibilities that this is going to bring. And it's really going to bring KFAB into like the 21st century radio technology. I mean, because when you think about radio now, a lot of people are listening on the AM band, and right now there's 53 of you watching on Facebook. So wow, I mean, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, that wouldn't have happened. 10 years from now, there could quite possibly be more people watching online than are watching on terrestrial air, and it really opens up the radio station market. You're not just talking to people in Omaha or Lincoln or Des Moines anymore. Now you're talking to people potentially around the world. So your content, you still want to focus on your local content, but you at least have to be aware that you could have far-flung distant people listening to the program. And so when you're doing your show, you keep that in mind. And this is the kind of thing, if we can make the KFAB studio more of a pseudo television radio studio instead of just a plain old radio studio, that's really going to be entertaining. It's going to allow them to do some really funny things. Some of the funniest stuff happens when the microphones are off, guys. Like when we get a call from somebody, and there's always those few people that call into the radio programs, and they are bat crazy. You just know they're crazy. When they introduce themselves with a military title they've given themselves, and they demand to be placed upon the air to talk about their manifesto. We get those calls on Compute This too. That's why we have a call screener to make sure that I don't get some guy on the air and all of a sudden he's like talking about the aliens coming from space and they're going to take our children. And what you're talking about your computer security? What are you doing for your children's security? The aliens are coming, and maybe we should let some of those calls through. It'd be kind of funny, but like you have somebody once in a while they get through. And so you're sitting here with your microphone and you're doing your show, and all right, let's go to the calls. And then the guy's like, this is Captain Crunch, and I'm with the Space Defense Force. And you're like, oh God. Oh, well, what can I do for you today? Yeah, they're coming for your children, man. All right, our children, we'll make sure we keep an eye on them. Thanks for the call. Ooh. Speaking of calls about children, one of the latest scams going around is you get a phone call with a kid's voice, something, you're like, I'm in trouble, I need help, and Mom, I need help, And it's scary enough. It puts a shock into you. Or somebody will call, like my father got a call that my son Jacob was on a drive to Colorado. Now, this is before we went to summer camp. He was going to Colorado for a wedding. He had a little too much to drink. He got pulled over, got a DUI. He's in jail right now. He's in holding. I've been hired as his representative, but he needs to pay the fee. And he said that I should call you because he didn't have the money to pay the fee, and he's a little embarrassed. He doesn't want everybody to know. So if you could wire transfer this amount of money for his legal defense, I've talked to the prosecutor. It's his first offense. They're going to go easy on him, but we just have to get in there and get this done. But before I can do that for him, I need you to wire this money. And so they called my dad and gave him that story. And he's like, well, golly, that sure is crazy because, Jacob's 10 years old. I know kids get married young these days, but that's kind of crazy. And so it's obviously fake, right? But then after my dad hangs up the phone, he sits there for a few minutes and he thinks about it. And he calls the lovely Kimberly and he goes, is Jacob there with you? Like, it's probably not true, but maybe I should check. So yeah, he's sitting right here. It's like, well, he was off getting married and he got drunk and got pulled over, and yeah, it's all kinds of fun stuff. So yeah, watch out for those kind of scams. They're fake. If you get a phone call that one of your relatives is in trouble or your grandson or granddaughter's in trouble, that's not going to be a legit problem. All right, lived in Denver for a year. The weather is the most bipolar, bar none. Yeah, it is crazy. It changes so fast, and like you're hot, and then the sun goes behind a cloud, and now you're cold, and you're like, good. So you're zipping the legs off your pants, and then you're zipping them back on, but you have hiking boots on, so you have to take them off and put them on, and your socks get wet, and then your feet get cold, and then your feet get hot. Yeah, it was a fun week. I mean, it was great to go to the mountains and have that experience, and the boys had a blast. With all the shortcomings of the camp, they still had a good time. They got to go whitewater rafting. My son. All right, so this is how proud I am of what he was able to do at camp. So he took the fly fishing merit badge because he thought fly fishing would be fun. So he goes to the camp, and the person teaching the fly fishing course is like a 14-year-old girl who has never, I'm not joking, she has never fished of any kind. She certainly never fly fished. She doesn't know the fishing knots. She was trying to learn them the night before she taught the class so she could teach them in the class. She had never cleaned a fish. She had never eaten a fish. Yeah, and she's teaching the fly fishing course. That's how bad the staffing was there. And so my son goes to do his fly fishing thing. And the whitewater rafting trip was Wednesday, so they were all checked out of all their classes Wednesday so they could go whitewater rafting. So then they come back on Thursday. That's the last day of camp. He's got to catch a fish, clean a fish. He's got to do it today or he's not going to get the merit badge completed. So he goes out and he's getting everything started. And the teacher dismisses the class early because, oh, I'm sure you guys all have it taken care of. We'll be fine. And dismisses the class like 20 minutes early. And I'm stopping this person. I'm saying, listen, my son he hasn't completed the requirements yet. He needs help. And he goes, okay, well, I'll be back. He never came back. So literally my son, he read the book before he came to camp and he's trying to remember the knot that you have to tie the fly on with. And he's getting frustrated. And I'm like, and the pole has never been out of the container before. And so I took the opportunity to say, Jacob, this is a good lesson, and maybe you should have assembled your gear and strung your pole and everything, before you left for camp. So you knew how to do it when you got to camp. You shouldn't, the first time you practice with your gear shouldn't be when you're trying to use your gear. Good life lesson, right? I know, Dad. Okay. And this stupid knot. And I'm like, Jacob, and I'm not a fisherman either. I don't know the knot. And I'm like, Jacob, just tie a Jacob knot on it. Just tie a knot that keeps it on there then. You know what? Don't get hung up on the little details. Tie a knot that keeps the fly on there. If we lose a fly, we lose a fly. We'll put another one on. So then we go out, and the only place you can stand in the lake is where the wind is blowing in your face. And the wind up there was wicked. It was pretty windy. So we're trying to cast, and for the merit badge, they have to cast at 30 feet, right? So he's casting, and it's going like 5 feet, and he's going 10 feet, and he's getting frustrated. And I'm like, well, maybe he's not, flip your wrist, son, when I'm trying to tell him, I don't know. I've never fly fished before either. Like, flick your wrist when you do it. So like, here, let me try. And so I get up there, and I get a bunch of extra line out because the line is really light. You kind of have to have it loose. And I'm like, and I flick it as hard as I can, and it goes way up in the air, and it goes out over the lake, and I'm thinking, yeah. And then suddenly, as if suspended by a force of nature, it just stops and hovers there. And then it reverses and comes back to me and lands 10 feet away in the water. So it was a really impressive cast, except it got the same result that my sons did, because the wind was blowing it back at us. So we got it about 15 feet out, and you have to flick it a bunch of times, because he read the book. And he said, in the book, Dad, it said you have to flick it on the water a bunch of times to attract the fish. And so you flick it, because you could flick up to 30 times before you do an actual real cast. And as if mocking us. So we're getting about 10, 15 feet out. 5 feet further, fish are literally jumping out of the water and catching bugs and landing back in the water. It's like they're mocking us. They're like, ha, can't get me, flash. And so finally, we get that one dumb Gomer fish. And, we're flicking and flicking and flicking. And my son, he's going and doing it. And this is stupid. This isn't going to work, blah, 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 blah. And all of a sudden, boink, he gets a fish on his line. And reel him in, Jay, reel him in. He's like, oh, gosh, which side is the reel on? He's trying to reel him in because he's never practiced with the gear before. And he reels in this fish. It was a 12-inch trout. It was a good catch. And he was like, okay, finally, we're done with this garbage. Because he was a little bummed about the instruction and everything. So we get back up to where they're taking the fish for the fish fry. Because the kids have to clean the fish and cook the fish, and then the staff is gonna eat them in a fish fry or something. I don't know. So I'm like, where do we put the fish? There are no stringers. There are no buckets. Just wrap the fish in foil and leave it on the table. Everyone's going to lunch. You wrap the fish in foil and leave it on the table? And so this fish, I'm holding it in my hand, and it's flopping, it's doing its thing. And I'm like, I'm supposed to wrap this thing in foil and let it die in a foil ball? That's pretty nasty, actually, pretty mean. So, I'm going to club the fish, because that's better than dying in a foil ball anyway. I'm going to stun him. So, and I don't want my son to see this, right? Because, all of a sudden he's not going to, maybe he would, if I explained it to him, he'd understand why I'm clubbing the fish. I'm not just being mean. But, so I've got the fish, and I'm walking behind my son, and there's a picnic table beside me, and I'm like, whack. He turns around and looks at me, I'm like, what? And of course the fish doesn't even stun. It goes crazy, like flipping and flopping, and I'm like, oh my gosh. So then we roll it up in the foil like we're supposed to, because there's no buckets and no stringers on a fishing campsite. And the thing, you could see it moving in the foil, and I'm like, this is terrible. So put it in more foil. It was like, okay, he caught a fish, he made his merit badge, and then they cooked it and cleaned it, and then they all tasted their fish, and it was all good. So anyway, camp stories. Okay, so questions. That should give you guys plenty of time to type your questions in now. All right, I have already called up twice to the Lincoln Service Center to make sure Endpoint was moved from the old desktop to the new one. I was advised it was, and now you mentioned during the show that it hasn't. Okay, Jenny, I don't know for certain that yours has moved or hasn't moved. All I know is there was a list of computers in our portal that are listed as not being moved. Now, it is entirely possible that rather than moving you in the portal, especially if you had a new computer, we may have just installed a new version of Endpoint on the new computer, and then the technician didn't delete you from the old system because they knew all those ones were going to go away in July. So they probably just said, oh, there's no point in deleting it, it's going to go away in July. So if that's what actually happened, that's why you could be in both systems. That's how you could have got a call and have Endpoint working on your computer. So the way you can tell, if you're on your computer, you open up your Endpoint, you double click on that icon down there in the lower right hand corner, and if it looks shiny and smooth with rounded graphics and it looks really pretty, that's the new Endpoint. If it looks boxy and square with text all over it, that's the old Endpoint. Big square nasty buttons, that's the old Endpoint. So that's the easy way you can tell. As long as you have the new Endpoint installed in your computers, everything's golden, everything's awesome. You don't have to worry about it. But we are calling that list of people because there are people who have not turned on. They had us installed on a laptop, but then they haven't turned the laptop on because they only use it when they travel. Well, if you don't turn your computer on, it can't do the update. So most importantly, that call was, hey, turn your computer on for me and leave it on for 24 hours so that this update can happen. Then we were going to go back on Monday after the calls had gone out and look at the list again when I got back to see how many we had left. And there was about 500 people out of 4,000 that hadn't done it yet. Pretty significant a number, considering how many we're dealing with. But the majority of people are fine. So I will check up on that on Monday, and we'll let everybody know what's going on and get everybody moved over. We're trying to do the mass robocall thing first, because calling 500 people manually is a tedious task. So if we can get 300 of them to just turn their computer on and migrate everything, that'd be a lot better. So we will follow up with you on that one, Jenny. All righty. Thor's tent is deemed the Tajma tent. Yeah. Yeah, I may have had a Mr. Buddy heater in my tent, even though they said no flame on the no flame in tent for your safety. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna freeze, so my safety is not freezing. It's cold at night up here. Got down to like 32 the first night, 33 the first night we were there. Yeah, I had some. I didn't have snacks in the tent because there were bears sighted. And they had stories like that campsite. The tent next to mine had been raided by a bear like 2 weeks before or something. And the last camp, they said, oh yeah, last year this tree over here fell over and landed right on top of that tent over there. Yeah, we had to rebuild the whole thing, the platform and all. You might want to clear some trees from around the tents, please. I don't want to die in my sleep. All right. Always interesting to find random things that the boys lost when you get home. Yeah, I know. We on the picnic table, we gathered up everything that was left behind. We're like, do you have anything on the picnic table? Oh, no, we got everything. Whose toothbrush is this? Nobody was taking it. Whose Claritin is this? And I look at the side of the bottle, and the Claritin says expires in like 4 of 17. I'm like, I think we can safely throw this away because it's just a placebo at this point anyway. I feel so much better. My allergies are great. So we threw that away. We threw the toothbrush away. We policed the ground. Gosh, yeah. Our boys didn't fight. There was no fighting, which was great. Everybody got along, awesome. But we shared a campsite with a troop from Texas. Sorry, if you're listening, Carolyn, they weren't from Round Rock. They were from Houston. Troop 331 from Houston. They were a pretty good troop. They had some good kids. But there was one kid named Michael in that troop. And my gosh, that kid was a mean kid. Like, quit touching me. Don't touch me. And you're just like, whoa, I'm laying in my tent trying to take a nap. And all of a sudden I hear, don't touch me with that stick, you mother. Yeah, give me that stick right now or I'm going to. And you're like, whoa, what's going on? Is it my boys? Hold on. So I get up and I look out. And apparently somebody was poking this guy, Michael, with a walking stick. And he got mad and he took the stick from the kid. And then he threw it in the latrine. The latrine they have to pump out. So then later that night, this Michael kid is sitting by the fire. And someone's sitting next to him, like not even touching, like not bothering him. But there's only so much space on the log in front of the fire, right? Don't touch me. And I was just like, I've had enough. Dad mode kicked on. I'm like, Michael, I don't want to hear that kind of language out of you again. And if I hear it again, you can find somewhere else to sit. He just doesn't receive. Do I make myself clear? I'm sorry, Michael. Did you hear me? And then the person next to him, Michael, yeah, I heard you. All right. The guy that was running our campsite, the camp sends out a representative that runs your campsite. He was 14. All of our boys are around 10 to 13. Yeah, that's kind of that's an authority figure for you. And so he decided we built a nice, good fire there, and we're all sitting around it. And he decides he's going to throw pine boughs on the fire. So he throws a dry pine bough on the fire, which is everything was very wet. Let me preface this. It was very wet. It rained every day we were there. The mountain is at 300% annual rainfall right now, so the fire hazard is very low. So we weren't creating like wildfires here or anything. But still, the boys should never assume that you're at 300% rainfall. They didn't know that. They knew it rained and everything was wet, but still, you're throwing a pine bough on a fire and embers are flying everywhere. And it's windy up there. So, I mean, you get an ember that goes off somewhere, you can start a forest fire. It's, you have to be a good steward of your ecology. And so he throws the stuff in the fire, and one of the leaders from Troop 331 walks up next to him and is trying to preserve any scrap of authority that this 14-year-old might have over the other 13-year-olds. And he casually says, standing right next to the kid, like hint, hint, let's not throw anything else in the fire, boys. And immediately, I'm not 1 second, he was probably moving before he said it. This kid picks up another handful of stuff and throws it in the fire. And it was just like, Oh, his name happened to be Michael too, so I don't know. It was like the Michaels were. It was like, oh my gosh. All right, let's see. Yeah, she's funny. Lovely Kimberly with my Tajma tent. Yeah, I have the Tajma tent. That's got all the stuffs. It's got the batteries. It's got the first aid kit. It's got the square footage. Well, I mean, it's a family tent. It's built for 8, but it's just me. So yay. But this was a campus tent that was in. So I actually pared things down. I didn't have to bring a tent, stuff like that. So my solar panels fit nicely on the outside of the tent to charge up, so I'd have power for my devices. Because they were in airplane mode the whole time I was there, no signal. And I actually educated some dads. If you're in a spot where there's no signal and there's not going to be a signal, like on the top of a mountain, put your phone in airplane mode and then manually turn on your Bluetooth for your headphones, because your phone is constantly looking for signal, and it will drain your battery in like 2 hours to nothing. And so put it in airplane mode, your phone will last for days. And they're like, wow, that's great. Some other charging myths. This is one of the stories we didn't get to today. All right, these are phone charging mistakes. Number 1, keeping your phone on the charger all the time. I'm affectionately referred to as the battery Nazi in my house, because if it's not on a charger when I walk by, it's on a charger after I walk by. So that everybody's devices are topped off and charged and everything is ready to rock and roll. If you're the type of person who takes your phone off to charge in the morning, pops it on the charger in the car on the way to work, and then plugs it into a charger by your desk all day, again before charging it in the car on the way home, and finally putting it on the charger overnight when you get back, then you need to stop. That is me. I do that exact thing. Exactly. Continuous charging wears out the battery. Now, see, there's 2 schools of thought here. Continuous charging wears out the battery, or charging it below 40%, or draining it below 40%, is considered a charge-recharge cycle. Your phone's only good for about 200,000 of those. Or, excuse me, 2,000 of those. Sounds like a lot, 2,000 of those, right? That's a couple of years if you do it every day. Or sorry, no, it's like 4 years if you do it every day. If you do it multiple times a day, it's less. So they're saying here you shouldn't keep it charged to 100%, that you should let it drop down to at least 50 and then charge it back up again. That's great as long as your kids are paying attention. My kids let it go down to like it turns the device off, and then they're like, my phone is dead or my iPad is dead. Well, put it on the charger. Letting your phone run flat all the time. So it's a bad idea, especially if you're in a hot or cold climate, like on a mountaintop, to let your phone drain all the way to 0. You shouldn't let it do that. Using poor quality cables, and then another thing they listed was using broken cables, which I would make the argument that those are the same thing. Poor quality / broken cables. Most charging cables come across as fine. The cheap and nasty ones you find at the dollar store are not up to the job of charging modern smartphones, especially with fast chargers. Here's a simple test. If the cable feels thin and flimsy, or if it gets warm while charging, it's a poor cable and you should replace it. So I like to get those big, thick braided cables. They have a braided coating on them. It keeps them from breaking and cracking and stuff. Those are great. I love those. That's what I use in the car when I have my phone on the charger all the time. All right, using wireless charging. This surprised me. So first of all, I knew that wireless charging is slower than charging with a cable. I knew that. But do you know if you have a case on your phone? This is my mountain case. So this is my phone, and this is what it looks like in its big old like mountain case. So if I drop it off a mountain, it's not going to die. But if you put a case on your phone and you put it on the wireless charger, what ends up happening is the thicker your case is, the less effective your wireless charging is, the slower it goes. So as a result, this big, thick, heavy mountain case was slowing down my wireless charging. So who knew? That's really not a don't. It's just if you're going to leave it on all night, it doesn't make a difference. So what the heck? All right, connecting your phone when it is too hot or too cold. It's not smart to leave your phone baking in the sun, in a car window, or to let it get too cold. You didn't have much of a choice. Phones have an operating temperature of 0 and 35 degrees Celsius, which is 32 degrees to 95 degrees Fahrenheit. So if it's below freezing, your phone will start to act funny and your battery won't charge right. If it's over 95 degrees, the same thing happens. I remember another camp out I went on where the boys actually qualified for their polar bear badge. It was a Cub Scout camp out. We had no idea it was going to get below freezing, and it did. And my phone, there wasn't this phone, it was my previous phone, my S7, the battery actually swelled up and popped the screen off the phone because it was so cold. So cold will definitely impact the life of your battery, as will extreme heat. Last thing is, if you're going to store your device for more than a few weeks, you should have it at about a 50% charge. Don't have it fully charged or fully discharged. Leave it at about 50% for the best battery health. All right, so we got to that story. Yep, steamboat yesterday, got a couple feet of snow. All right, when putting the laptop into sleep mode a couple times and waking it back up, the McAfee scan window pops up, and we have Webre. Yeah, so this is funny. So you probably have Webre, but you probably also recently got an update for your Adobe Flash Player. And your Adobe Flash Player, if you got the update from Adobe as opposed to from Secure Updater, Adobe will bundle in software. They get paid to bundle software. And one of the things that you'll get is the McAfee Advisor. Norton has one too. It's the Norton Security Advisor. But what it does is it's a program that gets installed on your computer, and it scans your computer for threats. And if it finds a big scary threat, it pops up and tells you, you have a big scary threat. And as a result, you should buy McAfee so that we can remove this threat, because this software doesn't remove it. It just scans for it. So there you go. So you have one program, McAfee, which is absolutely useless, that you should just uninstall from the computer. So go into your apps and uninstall that. The second thing is you have Webre, which is not useless, but it's next to useless. It does not rank well in any of the Consumer Reports studies that are done. Definitely, its best case scenario among paid antivirus products, it ranks middle to the lower top 10, as opposed to, like I said, Semantic Endpoint is number 1 or number 2. They trade spaces with the Russian-made Kaspersky product, is also very good. But basically, as you hear in the spots, those are the 2 that are recommended. Anything else is less than adequate. Anything else is not going to protect you as well. If you have secure IT because you bought your computer at Nebraska Furniture Mart, you need to get that stuff off your computer as quick as you can. It is garbage. In my opinion, it is garbage. There we go. That's my legal covering there. If you have McAfee, it's garbage. If you have AVG, even the paid version, it's garbage. If you have, what are some of the others? I was trying to remember. Webre was the one I was trying to remember earlier. It said it starts with a W. I can't think of it. So Webre, McAfee, AVG, bad. Stopzilla. Yeah, I actually had somebody come up with Stopzilla. Stopzilla doesn't be stopping many Zillas, so you need something better. How reliable is BitDefender for Macs? BitDefender does rank in the top 5. In the Consumer Reports doesn't do studies for Macs. There's just not enough demand for it. So they do studies for overall antivirus products. So in the overall antivirus products, BitDefender is not in the top 10. With that said, there are a few security options for Macs, because you have to create a whole separate version of your product to run on a Mac. And people who have Macs typically believe they're impervious to infection, so you obviously don't sell a lot of software. So Mac protection tends to be more expensive, of lower quality. So BitDefender is not bad. I'm trying to remember if BitDefender is the free one. I'm trying to think here, because I know there's a free one for Mac. I think it's Clam is the free one. Let's see here. So BitDefender Mac. All right, PC Mag Editor's Choice. Well, yeah, everybody gets an Editor's Choice from PC Magazine. They don't even tell you the year. They have a no impact on performance. Well, that's a lie. Every antivirus product impacts your performance. PCs, Macs, iOS, Android, smartphone, tablet. So yeah, it's definitely a paid version. So here's the thing. What I tell customers who have paid for antivirus software somewhere else, look at how much time you have left. If you just paid for a renewal and you've got a full year left, go through and use the year you've got. Use it up, let it be done, and then move on. If you have a few months left, and Endpoint's on sale this month, it won't be next month. So make the move. Endpoint is a better security product. It is the best that you can get. That or Kaspersky are the 2 best that you can get. Anything else is going to, it may be effective, but it's going to be less effective than something like Endpoint would be. So if you take the security of your computer and your data and your privacy seriously, Endpoint. Speaking of privacy, I didn't get time to get to this on the program. Saw an article actually on the Drudge Report that was about Google Chrome, and it was a Tech Radar story. So it was from techradar.com. The guy said he's a tech guy, and all tech guys use Chrome. They all do. And he says, I'm done with Chrome. Because the stuff that Chrome is doing right now, having the world's leading online marketing company also make the world's leading browser is a conflict of interest. because basically Google is setting up a world in which you can be tracked anywhere on the web, everything you go to, everything you look at. That's how you end up looking at a pair of pants on one website, and then you see pants and clothes on every website you go to for the rest of the week. It's because Google, these cookies that are getting dropped on the computer, Google has weaponized these cookies to provide advertising hooks so that they can figure out what you're doing or what you want, and then they can deliver those valuable ads to you. But those advertising hooks that collect that data can also be misused to track you on the internet, to find out what you're looking at, to make income profiles about you, to determine what your interests are, to there's a million different reasons why these are bad. And Google Chrome is the worst offender. It allows all of them to come through. Doesn't matter if they're just Google's or not. And Google says they're going to change Chrome so only Google's cookies are good, which that's a great move to make if you're the world's leading online marketing company, and every online marketing company relies on cookies. If only your cookies work in the world's most popular browser, isn't that special? Wow. Don't be evil. They actually removed that from their they did. They really did. So it was never an official thing. It was just more of a common thing. Don't be evil. But now we took that away, so we could be bad if we need to, a little bad. And the guy, he says, honestly, he goes, I moved to Firefox. And I've been a proponent of Firefox for a long time. Firefox automatically blocks all third-party cookies if you want it to. You don't have to go into the privacy settings and tell Firefox what to do. Firefox just does what it's supposed to do. It's got built-in features. If you use Chrome, you're familiar with incognito. You're always incognito when you use Firefox now. They just updated, the latest update is, nothing tracks you. It's amazing. And then, of course, you couple that with an ad blocker, and all of a sudden you've got a nice privacy shield. So yeah, it's one of those things to think about. If you're a Google Chrome user, you might want to think about switching over to Android. The switch is not as hard as it used to be either. It's actually pretty straightforward. There are some things that work better in Chrome. Right now, this broadcast is being done through a Chrome browser, but it's literally the only thing I use Chrome for. So fun stuff there. All right, moving along. No, it's not free. You're right, Deb. You were right. Sorry, I should have scrolled down. I could have saved myself some time there. Is the Endpoint for the phone on sale only this month? That is correct, Carolyn. It is on special this month. The plan right now is to raise that price up to a normal Endpoint price. We have a little bit of a quandary because it costs us the same to monitor a phone and to provide all the services to the phone as it does to a computer. But people are used to paying less for things for phones than computers. So we're not sure what the final price is going to be, but it will be higher than $65. It might be $100, it might be $165 or $160, somewhere in there, same as a computer. But yeah, this month is the sale price. Stephanie asked a question earlier, and she was wondering also. Let me just try to scroll back and see. There's Jenny. Where's Stephanie? Carolyn, Wesley, Stephanie. If I purchase a new phone, can my Endpoint subscription be transferred? Sorry, I missed that one. That's a good question. Absolutely. If you purchase a new computer, we can move your Endpoint subscription, and if you purchase a new phone, we can also move your Endpoint subscription to the new device. All righty. And I'm trying to scroll. Touchpad scrolling is fun. All right. Your opinion of Norton. It comes free if you subscribe to LifeLock. That's not the full Norton suite. That's Norton Security, which is the entry-level security product. Semantic Endpoint does a lot more than Norton does. So I would, again, having Norton is better than nothing. It does rank well, but having Semantic Endpoint is a much higher level of protection. All right, guys, well, that kind of wraps up the Aftershock. 45 minutes is a good one. So I made up hopefully for last week and the week before. If you have questions, you can always ask them on Facebook. You can always call the service centers. We're open today from noon to 5. And we're happy to have you every other day of the week. We're open from 10 to 8. Give us a call. We're happy to help you out. And, of course, as always, if you have questions or problems or anything with the staff or anything, let me know. They're all good people. They all work hard to get you taken care of. I was gone last week, so I don't know how many of the mice were playing. But the lovely Kimberly was ordering last week. And it was like, you remember those commercials from like the 80s where like, hey, the boss is gone, so we're going to have an everything's got to go sale, and so she's gone. And she says, well, this person ordered the Intrepid laptop, but if I can get a better processor for $30 more, if I just click over here and get this option, it's only $30 more. She didn't. We only make like $30 on a laptop. She's like, so she's getting that. So it's like everything's got to go. She's ordering i5s for people. Like, here, have an i5. It was great. Everybody loves the lovely Kimberly. And I get back and she's like, sorry if I messed up. I'm like, no, you did fine. Computers got ordered, customers got happy. You know, if it costs us $30 extra to make somebody happy, I'm okay with that. All right, guys. Thanks for joining us. Your brother is a Mac support professional for home, and he recommends Sophos. You know, and like I said, professional people, their opinions will vary. You will have technicians that will tell you all day long that AVG is all you need. They get paid by AVG to sell AVG. You'll have me tell you that Symantec is what you need. We do make money selling Symantec software, but Symantec doesn't pay us to sell the software. We actually pay Symantec to use the software. We recommend Symantec Endpoint because from a consumer perspective, for a non-technical user, this is the difference between our recommendation and other people's. For a non-technical user, someone who doesn't want to be bugged with questions, who doesn't understand the difference between excluding something and deleting something, or excluding something or allowing something, you know, if you don't want to answer any of those questions, Symantec Endpoint allows us to create that group policy that basically provides a shield. You know, the hardware is protected, the software is protected, and our group policy, it protects the wetware, this part of the equation, so that you can't do something silly like disable your antivirus because something pops up on the screen and tells you to. We actually had a guy call us upset because he could not disable his antivirus. Well, what are you trying to do? That's not important. I just want to be able to. Is there a website asking you to disable your antivirus, sir? Well, yes. Is this a website that shows videos, sir? Is that why they're asking you to disable this, so you can download a video codec so you can see videos on the internet? Yeah, how'd you know that? Well, it's a common thing we see, sir. Translated. That's what a lot of porn sites do to infect your computer, sir. But you know, we won't say that. So we say, oh, that's a common thing, sir. That's a trick. A lot of people will turn off their antivirus to get this codec installed. And then once they get this codec installed, not realizing it's a virus, they don't get the video content anyway, or they're redirected to video content that would have worked just fine if they wouldn't have installed the codec. So if there's a button that you can click after you've installed the codec to continue, go ahead and click that button, and I bet it works just fine. Hey, sure enough, it does. Thanks a lot. Yucky. All right, guys. Have a great afternoon. We'll talk to you here again next Sunday.